Hi everyone, and welcome back to another lesson in information technology. In our previous lesson, we looked at an introduction to problem solving. In today's lesson, we're going to be looking at problem decomposition. Let us do a brief recap of what we covered in our previous lesson. In our previous lesson, we looked at the steps involved in the problem solving process. And we want to also go back through another example using something that you are most familiar with and something that students struggle with on a daily basis. So we're looking at studying for your exams. Now, the problem is studying for your exams. The next step would be to look at proposing and evaluating possible solutions. In our example, we would want to determine whether or not an individual study or a group study would be most suitable for us. For myself, I like to study by myself for the most part. So let us select individual study. All right. So here I am choosing the best possible option for myself. All right. Now we want to put in place an algorithm that will help to solve this problem. And in the case of my algorithm, it would be to create a study plan. And that study plan involves several steps. Now, those steps are to create a timetable by filling in the subjects in the different days and for times, and ensuring that you give those subjects that have or that you are weakest in the greatest amount of time. You're going to gather past paper questions. You're going to gather your notes. You're going to download videos either from YouTube or from the Google Classroom space. And remember that those videos you download from Google have proprietary issues, so you have to be careful about that. Then you're going to note the topics to be covered in the exam. And then now you are going to go and study using the study plan. And this is the part where we implement the solution that you have come up with. All right. Of course, if you have implemented it, you can now go back and tweak it when you after you recognize that perhaps this subject maybe need a bit more time, or I'm too tired when I'm studying this subject based on a timetable, so I need to move certain things up. It is up to you. All right. Let us now go into the objectives for today's lesson. We want to be able to, at the end of the lesson, to be able to identify the keywords for input, process, and output. And when we get into this list, it is by no means exhaustive. It is just an introduction to those keywords. We want to have an explanation of the IPO chart. And we also want to be able to decompose problem using the IPO chart. What is your IPO chart? As its name suggests, it's a chart. IPO stands for Input, Processing, and Output. And we use our IPO chart to decompose a problem, which means to simply breaking it up into its most significant parts. And in this situation, it means we want to break it up into its input, process, input or inputs, process or processes, output or outputs. Okay. Some keywords that we want to consider that will indicate one input. Words like get, accept, ask. And remember, I said that these are not the only words. There are others, but these are just a few. For your process, you want to look for words like calculates, finds, computes. And for your output, you want to look for words that say things like output, display, and print. Now let us look at the first example, problem 1. It says get two numbers from the user, calculate the sum, and output the sum. In this example, our keyword for input is get, and what follows the word get are two numbers. So you will realize, students, that whatever comes after your input keyword usually indicates your input, and our process keyword is calculate. So generally what goes after your process keyword, which is calculate, would be what your process is going to be. And in this case, it is a sum. And for our output keyword here, we have the word output, and obviously it is the sum. So under the input column, we put two numbers, and the process column, we put sum, and under the output column, we put sum. In our next example, we're going to break this down a little bit further. We're going to break down the input, and we're going to break down the process. And for this, I'm going to switch from presentation mode to a mode where I can actually type into the table. So for problem 2, it says, ask for the length and width of a rectangle. Calculate and output the area and perimeter. Our keyword for input is ask. And what are we asking for? We're asking for the length. So I'm going to underline that. And it's good for you to make note of what your input keyword is and your input, as long as you are still learning how to identify them and it is challenging. Thereafter, you can just easily identify and you won't need to underline anything. But for now, we're just going to be underlining them. So our input here is length. And I'm going to type length under the input column. Then it says, ask for the length and width of a rectangle. So we have width. If you notice, students, I did not use the word and. We do not want to write sentences into our columns. We just want to write, in this case, the individual inputs. All right. So for the process, our process keyword is calculate, and we are asked to calculate and output the perimeter. Here is included in one statement two things: your process statement and your output statement. So we are asked to calculate both the area and perimeter as well as to output them. So I'm going to, in the process column, I'm going to type area, and I'm going to put the formula for area now. So I'm going to say area is equal to, and we know that the area of a rectangle is length times width. And if you notice, I'm using back the word length, typing it exactly as it appears in the input column, and I use the asterisk for the multiplication symbol, and then I'm going to type in width. I know that in your math classes, you have a tendency to put L times W, but because our inputs were not L and W, we cannot use L and W in our process. We have to use back what we have written in the input column. I'm going to now do the calculation for perimeter. And you know that the perimeter of when we want to find the perimeter of a rectangle, we add all four sides. So there are two lengths and there are two widths. What I will do, I will put the two, open the brackets, and I will put length plus width. And that gives us our formula. Alternatively, you could have put in 2 times length plus 2 times width, or length plus width plus width. Those two would have also worked as well. Our output, as we stated earlier, based on the statement, is going to be both our area and our perimeter. And so we type those in. Now let us look at 3 additional examples to cement what you have just learned. First question, ask the user for the quantity and cost of an item being purchased, determine the total cost, and output the result. Now this one has a little bit of trickiness to it. Let us first examine the input. It says ask the user for, and what are we asking the user for? Quantity and cost. We go ahead and put those into the column. I'm going to use QTY for the sake of space. And then I'm going to also put cost. And for our process, we are asked to determine the total cost. So our total cost, and if you notice, I am not putting any space between the words total and cost. Later on, we start to talk about variables. You will understand a little bit better why I did not put any space in the word total cost. All right, so whatever process you deem to be calculating, whatever words you're going to be using there, do not put any space if you have multiple words. You can either join the words or put an underscore between them. Put an equal sign as usual. And then now we're going to determine what the total cost is. If you have quantity and you have cost, then our total cost is going to be quantity times cost, or it could have been cost times quantity. Remember that multiplication is commutative, so even if you switch them around, the result is going to be the same. So total cost was the only process that you were asked to do. And so now we're going to move on to the output. And your output says, and output the result. Now students have a tendency to write result here in the output column. But what did you calculate, students? Did you calculate result? Remember, if you input two values and you do a calculation, then the natural thing to do is to output what you have calculated. So what were you asked to calculate in the first place? You were asked to calculate total cost. So instead of writing result in the output column, we are going to put total cost. Because at the end of the day, this is what we really want. Now let us look at example number 2. It says get 3 numbers. And I like this example because it allows me now to explain to you when I said I was going to break down the example that we had previously with the 2 numbers. So get 3 numbers from the user, calculate the product. So we're underlining what the processes are going to be. So we're asked to find the product as well as the average and output the results. So we have the results popping up again. Okay, so we're asked to get 3 numbers. In our previous example, we had put the word 2 numbers in the input section. But in this example, we're going to break it down. If I sent you to buy 2 cups of juice, you would not bring back 1 cup with 2 separate flavors in the 1 cup. You would naturally take back 2 cups, each cup holding their individual flavor. In the like manner, you are not going to put 2 numbers or 3 numbers in the IPO chart, but you're going to create separate containers to store each number, because each number is going to be stored in a different memory location and each container represents that memory location. So as you are given 1 number, you accept it and you store it. So you would end up with 3 storage locations, 1 for each number. So when you're giving the storage locations names, you're going to give them names that are meaningful. If you're storing numbers, then you could put number 1, number 2, number 3. You could put number 1, number 2, number 3. Those containers indicate what values they are storing. You could have used A, B, and C, but the truth is that A, B, and C really don't give you an indication of what they are storing. But if I say number 1, then it jumps out at you that yes, this container is storing a number. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type number 1. I'm not putting any space in the container's name. I'm going to type number 2 and number 3. So I'm going to make a bit of adjustment so that we can have a little bit more space here. Okay, so there we have our 3 inputs. Then we are asked to calculate the product and average. So we are doing 2 calculations in this example. All right, we're doing 2 calculations in this example. We're asked to do the product. So we type product equal. And when we say product, when we find product of anything, we're multiplying them. So we're multiplying number 1 by number 2 by number 3. All right, I'm going to adjust this a little bit just to give us some more space. And hopefully that will be all I need to do. Then the other process is our average. So we type average is equal to, and when we find the average, we generally add up all the values, all the numbers, and then we divide all of them by the number of numbers that we have been given. So we go ahead and I'm going to open the bracket. I'm going to explain to you why. Close the bracket, and I'm going to put the forward slash symbol and put 3. All right, so here we go. All right, so this table is giving a bit of trouble to adjust, so we just leave it as it is. Now, you will notice that I have the brackets around the addition of the 3 numbers. Students tend to forget the rules for addition and subtraction and multiplication and brackets. But students, you have to remember the rules, whether it's BODMAS or BOMDAS. If you're going to do a division like this, you must enclose the additional numbers that you're going to be adding in the brackets before you put the division symbol. Students tend to put number 1 plus number 2 plus number 3 slash 3. In that situation, students, what you're actually doing is adding number 1 to number 2, then dividing number 3 by 3, and adding the result to whatever results you got from adding number 1 to number 2. So be careful. So we are asked to output the results, and we're going to go back to the same example we used earlier. Any result that you have must be the results of the product and the average. So we're going to put product and average in the output column. And there is our second example completed. Last example now is get the date of birth from a student and find the student's age. Now, I really want to change this to year of birth instead of date of birth. So I'm going to change that. You have been given, obviously, one explicit input. So we underline that. And that's our year of birth. I'm going to use YOB for short. And it says find the student's age. So what we're calculating here is a student's age, or I'm simply going to use age for short. I'm going to type age here and put in the equal sign. So we have the year of birth as our only input, but how can we calculate somebody's age if we know their year of birth or the year they were born in? It's easy and it's simple. We know that in order to do that, we take the year that the person was born in and we subtract it from the year that we are currently in. So what we can do is we take the current year and we take away the year of birth from it. So our current year is 2021. So I can type 2021 here and deduct from that the year of birth. Alternatively, as I said, because it is the current year, you could have said current year minus YOB. And the second one is would have been used if you had gotten it as an input. But because you didn't get it as an input, you can't assume that you have it. So you put the age, you put the actual value in the process, and then you put minus YOB. So I'm going to put an asterisk beside that one because this one requires that you get the value current year as an input for you to use it in this manner using the words instead of the actual figure. Then now we're going to output the student's age, and I'm going to type back age as it appears. This concludes our lesson. And if you have found this lesson informative, if you have found it enlightening, don't want you to leave. I want you to like, I want you to share the video with somebody who you think will benefit from it. And I want you to subscribe to the channel for more awesome videos, and ensure that you hit that notification bell so that when more videos are posted, you'll be one of the first persons to know. Thank you for watching.